certainly welcome Pete Dunbeck. We look forward to your presentation. And congratulations to Tim Kaler, one of our new members of the planning board. We know one another, our boys grew up together, so it's nice to see you involved. And then, attending, I guess maybe if we each, I don't know how that would work with everyone muted, but we have included on the meeting, I saw that Christy Williams was on, and it was good to see you, Christy, and Kim Foster, our assistant town manager, Alan Edinburgh, Board of Selectmen, Fred Leonardo, John Steinberg, Chris Pyant, Todd Alexander, and I see Linda from Release. So I think hopefully we also have a guest on, we have Josh Lee Smith has joined us. So I think we have all EDC members, and great. Well, thank you all for joining us. I hope everyone is doing well and enjoying the beautiful weather we've had and finding some sense of normalcy with all the craziness we're living within. So maybe I guess we can start out. Thank you to Kristen for providing the minutes. I think everyone had seen those. If we can have a vote to approve the minutes. Someone would like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion
Kim.
to accept the minutes. Oh.
Yep, go ahead, Kim.
Can you just read the required, you have the portion of the agenda since we're meeting remotely?
Oh, down below? Okay. Pursuant to the governor's? Okay.
Yeah, we still need to do that since we're meeting remotely and do roll call votes.
Okay. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, section 30A or general laws, is it section 30A, section 18, I'm not certain, and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Westborough Economic Development Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and our parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Westborough's website. First, for this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so in the following manner. Westborough TV. And thank you to Karen Henderson and her staff for supporting us continuously. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time, being technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of Westborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Okay, very good. So with that, would someone like to we welcome you to the meeting, and we'd like to start with a vote to approve the minutes from August 31st.
Yeah,
would someone like
Leonardo
to
makes a motion to approve the minutes from August 31st.
Thank you, Fred.
John Steinberg, second.
Okay, all in favor?
No, you need a roll call vote.
Roll call.
Okay. Kim, do you want to do the roll call?
Sorry, I think just have members go around and say their last name and just.
Okay.
I think
Josh
that's easier.
Josh Lee Smith, aye.
Hi, Josh.
Sorry, that was an aye, but hi too.
Okay.
Yes.
Edinburgh, yes.
Leonardo, yes.
Steinberg, yes.
Pant, yes.
Alexander, yes.
Townsend, yes.
Sullivan, yes. Did we miss anyone? Okay, so all in favor and all, so moved? We all set with that, Kim? Okay, great. So we do have a guest with us today, Peter Dunbeck, who many of you have heard the last few months here at the Economic Development Committee and likely in other presentations as well. Peter, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to hearing your presentation on the Climate Action Plan Task Force.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me begin sharing here, and can you confirm, are you seeing the title slide of the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for having me. And Tim is also on the Climate Action Plan Task Force, so he's I guess wearing a couple of hats today. Appreciate him joining. The Climate Action Plan Task Force was formed as a result of a town meeting vote in the fall town meeting last year. And its objectives were kind of high level to establish a climate action plan for the town to drive toward net zero or 100% renewable. It was different expressions at different times. As a result of that town meeting motion, there was a task force set up by Christie, which includes 11 members. Chris Payant is also a member of that task force who's on your committee. And so I look forward to the discussion. So the first thing I wanted to do was to kind of, one of the first actions we took as a task force was to basically refine our goal. And the main point of this is that Westborough will be striving to do our fair share of a Massachusetts program, a Massachusetts law called the Global Warming Solutions Act. And at the time it was passed, it was established at the state level that there would be a 40% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 and 80% emissions by 2050. So the Climate Action Plan is a set of goals under that umbrella and strategies for achieving those goals. But also noted that if the state sets stricter goals over time, we feel we should continue to get stricter with the state and conform to the state programs. First activity we completed was to do a detailed greenhouse gas inventory. This is community-wide, so it includes not just the municipal operations, but all the commercial, residential buildings in town. And the method used here is a standard method, which was put into an Excel tool by MAPC and made adapted for municipalities in Massachusetts. So it ties directly into Massachusetts databases so that we can collect the data we need to model this. It also allows us to be consistent with the way other towns are doing similar work in the across the state. Key point on this slide is that there were 4 categories that represent 83% of the greenhouse gas emissions in the town. The highest, as you can see, is the residential vehicle use, personal vehicle use. The next 2 are the commercial and industrial, electricity and building heating spaces. And the 4th is residential building heating. So these are the areas that we need to focus on in order to achieve our goal and to do our fair share of the Global Warming Solutions Act. As I said earlier, we will be tracking whatever the state does over time, and it is a dynamic environment where just as recently as January, the governor has changed the goal to a net zero by 2050. And there's, in addition to the executive branch taking actions that are shown in the first bullet, the legislative branch, both the House and the Senate, have approved pretty comprehensive climate action bills. And they both have these goals of 50% reduction by 2030 and 75% by 2040 with a net zero by 2050. So again, we are going to be continuing to track what's going on at the state level and conforming our goals to that. one of the most important study groups and groups that are doing the detailed planning but below the legislative level is this Implementation Advisory Committee. And with the wonders of COVID and Zoom meetings, we can attend all of these Implementation Advisory Committee meetings. So in August, they proposed some key metrics, and I bring these into the meeting just to highlight how dramatic the changes are going to need to be made in order to achieve the goals of net zero by 2050. And you can see there's changes in building codes and in energy use intensity requirements by 2030, in electricity requirement changes. But two I wanted to draw your attention to that I think are the most dramatic. It includes having 1 million heat pumps installed statewide, which represents 40% of the households in Massachusetts will be heated by electric heat pumps. And in addition to that, 1 million light-duty electric vehicles, so residential size electric vehicles, which represents about 23% of the vehicles in Massachusetts, which is a dramatic change from, I mean, both of these are in the single digit. In heat pumps, it's probably less than 1%. So the rate of change the state is taking on is really dramatic, which of course is both kind of an opportunity and a threat to communities, which we'll talk about a little bit later. The expectation is that the work from the Implementation Advisory Committee in the Energy and Environmental Affairs Secretary will be culminated by March 2021 with firm emission limits for 2030 in a final version of the Clean Energy and Climate Plan. Was there a question? Shifting to Westborough, so the Clean Energy Plan work that the task force has done is built under the umbrella net zero by 2050 climate action plan goal. In that, we've broken down into 4 sectors: electricity, transportation, building heating, land, waste, and other, and then a collective all sectors goal. So we have 17 goals in these 5 buckets, and under those we have a total of 50 strategies. I'm not going to be going through all of that detail today. I just wanted to highlight kind of our approach. In that, this is our high-level 17 sector goals. And again, I just want to zoom in on a few of these. The key biggest impacts on greenhouse gas emissions for Westborough and really for the state is the electrification of building heating and transportation, as was shown on the earlier chart. It's also evident in our greenhouse gas inventory that these are the sectors that we need to make the changes in. We also need to buy clean source electricity from clean sources, 100% renewable sources, carbon-free sources. So these 3 with the black letters are the ones that really move the meter most in regard to measurable greenhouse gas emissions reductions. Underpinning that is 2 requirements. One is we are going to be totally depending on the grid, and our ability to make these changes of having these new loads, such as heat pumps and electric vehicle charging systems, are going to be fully dependent on National Grid's ability to support us locally in this transition. So one of the key strategies and goals is to create a partnership with National Grid and ensure we're fully aligned, both to understand their strategies because they know this transition is coming, so that we can take advantage of their strategies as well as we inform them of plans and ideas and programs we're planning to implement. The other is that all of this climate action plan and so forth is going to be depending on the quality of the results is going to depend on how well we follow up on the execution of this plan. This plan isn't going to be a static plan that we can write something down and it's going to be good for 10 years. It's going to have to continue to evolve. So whether it's volunteer committees from this committee, from planning board, from the Sustainable Westborough and other groups, or direct staff members, it's key that we have a good understanding of what the roles and responsibilities of executing the plan over time is. And I think there's opportunity for regional collaboration in this space. Westborough's very different than Boston and Cambridge, but we're quite similar to the towns around us, and we could take advantage of that similarity by sharing best practices and leveraging their expertise and initiatives in this area. I didn't want to leave that slide quite yet. Key parts of this that I didn't highlight include ongoing energy efficiency programs, energy use disclosure, which is a way to get greater insight into what is going on in buildings and to understand what needs to be changed. And on the far right side, protection of our natural environment, protection of open space, expansion, if possible, of forest and tree space, because that all creates sequestration of carbon, which is going to be a key element of our total solution statewide. Underneath, so this is just a kind of a high level summary. I wanted to give kind of one example. So if we take one of those goals, which is the electrification of building heating, underneath that we have elaborated them into more robust descriptions of what the goal is, and then a series of strategies which are represented by the bullets underneath here. So I use this as an example. When I say we have 17 strategies, we have 17 goals. We have 17 of these types of statements, and then underneath it a total of 50 different strategies that we intend to pursue. The goals we believe are pretty stable and will be more stable over time. The strategies are our best effort to define what we should be doing to achieve the goal, but new programs we expect to come from the state. Some of these programs we've defined may not pan out. We're going to have to continue to evolve as time marches on while we try to achieve these goals. One of the key parts of our program at this time is to begin an outreach program, both with town committees like the EDC here, as well as commercial and industrial businesses in town and residential meetings. So Jermaine, for this, I wanted to talk about how important it is that we engage with commercial and industrial accounts. It's really essential for the success of the climate action plan. It's my belief that most of the larger businesses, the enterprises, have energy and environmental goals and in many cases programs, often driven by cost, sometimes driven by environmental concerns and stakeholder pressure. I think it's important to highlight that there's an opportunity for Westborough in this transition if we understand the economic changes, that we can be positioning ourselves to attract some of these clean energy jobs. And over time, and I think every year, there's going to be new state programs that are targeting businesses to help businesses make this transition. The kind of the points I'm making of the criticality of getting businesses to make this transition is well known by the state, and there's going to be programs, whether they're financial incentives or potentially regulatory obligations that are going to be coming out. And I think one of the things we, as a climate action team and Sustainable Westborough, can do is to help keep the community informed about the changes that are coming and help in that transition. So my question, and I'd like to open it for discussion, is how can we best engage with businesses directly? Can the EDC, for example, host a meeting where we pull multiple people to get multiple companies together? Or can you help facilitate in a series of one-on-one meetings? It seems to me that there's probably going to be established successful companies that have done good work in this space. We could build case studies as examples for others. What are your thoughts in regard to how EDC can engage and be helpful in this process?
Does anyone want to lead with ideas?
No, I certainly think this is information we could add to the EDC website and, and include, should we start doing regular outreach to the business community again, include that in that outreach.
Points. I mean, we are talking about one of our major outreach initiatives to the business community has been the annual awards that we have. And this year, given where we're at, we are looking at doing something virtually, so we can certainly look to add it as a, maybe a point of discussion on for the agenda. Other ideas?
Pete and I had discussed this very briefly, but I guess for the committee, does anybody have any thoughts on engaging with an approach to engaging with the Metro West or the Chamber or any of those groups, and maybe what direction the Climate Action Plan group could take to connect with some of those organizations?
I'm curious with the 495 and Metro West partnership, whether you've been in touch with Jason.
Unrelated to this work, I did run into him at a meeting in Boston about a year and a half ago. So I know the organization, but I haven't discussed this with him.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't know who I am, I don't think.
Okay. Yeah. We have been talking about just at this time trying to collaborate and leverage the resources that we all have. So I think, and I know it's something Kim and I have talked about a bit in the past, the different area communities used to collaborate. Marlborough, Westborough, Southborough, I think Grafton, and one of our thoughts was to reach out to Jason through 495 Metro West, given that we all have constraints with resources. So, I mean, this would be an example of something that, he's been a great resource, and he's done a good job of, I think he's got a good database and a good ability to spread the word and availability of programs and new developments. So I think that's one that I would recommend.
So what is their kind of operational model? Do they take direction from the town, or do they have their own independent approach to?
It's a board of a public-private partnership. So they have dues paying private and public members. And then they also receive some funding through the state when they apply for these regional economic development grants. But they're looking to be an advocate for the region. So I mean, maybe we can arrange for an introduction and a conversation to hear what they consider to be appropriate.
That would be very useful.
So I think we've identified a few ideas. One, Alan had a good point to put something on our website. We can include this as a topic of discussion as we're trying to plan our annual event. And then more immediate, as we reach out to the 495 Metro West partnership, we can ask, introduce the idea, and maybe you can have a discussion and we can see what they may find to be appropriate to collaborate with the other towns in the region. Are there any other ideas?
Given that the climate action plan is fairly specific to Westborough, I'm wondering if this is something where we as an EDC could host a webinar or a couple of web events where we reach out and invite the Westborough business community to attend. And then Pete and his team can come in and handle the presentation and the Q&A.
Others can comment. I'll just be, at this point, I think it's something, I don't know what the timing is. We don't have a good system in place right now with all of the email addresses to engage companies. So maybe there's a way that we can collaborate with some of the existing groups, whether it's the partnership with their contacts within Westborough, maybe whether it's the Corridor 9 Chamber, I'm not certain, but I know that.
I think if we were going to hold an event and we let the Corridor 9 495 Chamber know, they could help us outreach to Westborough businesses. I would expect Rotary Club would be willing to help get the word out to local businesses. There are Facebook groups specifically for Westborough-based businesses that we could post and reach out to. Putting it on the EDC website, the town website, I think, we could get the word out that that this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And even if we don't, and certainly, any Westborough-based business that's, in the last 3 years that's been invited to the annual event, we've got contact information there. We can do some reach out. I'm not sure it's going to be that hard to take some initiative to fill the seats in a web event.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe a first step is to connect with the 495, the Metro West partnership, to the chamber, get their thoughts on how we pull in more folks if we're going to look at holding something, and also get a sense for a timeline or a time frame and what we might be talking about. Are we talking next month? Are we talking about December? Those types of things, and maybe come back and have more discussion about what that might look like.
I mean, I guess my question for Pete Dunbeck is, when is the right time to start educating the business community? I know your plan is to effectively bring things forth to, if I remember correctly, to a town meeting in the spring. Are you looking for things to start happening before the end of the year or first quarter next year?
Yeah, so we plan to have the plan completed in basically in front of the Board of Selectmen in February for approval, and not necessarily to present it at the town meeting, but to have it available before and approved by the town meeting time and distributed at that time. So the answer on when is the best time, I think we're in a phase now where we're looking to gather information, which would then help inform what strategies are best for businesses. We have a committee that has brainstormed a bunch of ideas. Are these viable, valid ideas? Are they, what practices is, maybe this Metro West partnership could even provide us critical feedback to basically help us build a better plan. So I think in the November, December timeframe would be timely for that. After kind of the document is done, there's still going to be a need for ongoing engagement, and maybe it's a semi-annual gathering of some sort where we provide updates on programs from the state and programs affecting the community that we can we as a community, not the task force, because the task force is going to disband, but, you know, whoever's responsible for execution in this space could potentially have ongoing discussions with the business community. But certainly the first one I'd like to see happen in November, December timeframe.
Well, Bonnie, if I may.
Sure.
One thought is maybe we start with a smaller group and get some feedback so that as we try to make this and, you know, get feedback from more companies across industry, across sectors. Yeah, I'm just wondering if we start with a smaller group, more kind of focus group style before we launch.
Is the goal of this initial communication, though, to get feedback or to make as many contacts as possible so that the task force can get information and to start educating businesses that this is a direction that the town is likely going in?
I guess what I was thinking is to inform that, though. Pete, do you think there's value in getting some feedback from a, you know, if we reach out and invite a select group in to start to have a conversation initially?
I think that's a valid idea and a good idea. If we had, let's say, 3 companies that might represent different industry segments or something that had some diversity in it, and ask them this question and say, this change is going to be happening over the next decade. What are you doing? What help do you need in preparing for this? And begin a discussion, and then potentially use that to inform a larger webinar.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't see, if you're going to do a limited number, I don't think 3 is sufficient. We've got many business sectors represented, and we have a wide range of sized businesses in town.
Yep.
And so, you know, the 9495 partnership is definitely seems to be geared towards mid-market and larger businesses or landlords who are worried about issues around transportation and broader regional issues. You know, 95% of the Corridor 9 chamber members are fewer than 7 employees. And so, you know, there's a small business community there, you know, that's very different. And then there's a whole fleet of, you know, businesses that are present here that tend not to be B2C and in the chamber, you know, who might not show up in either of those organizations' radars. So I think even if there's an initial group to get feedback to inform a webinar, it's got to be reasonable in size and scope. And so, you know.
Okay.
Pete, are you on the master plan subcommittee?
Yes.
So now that subcommittee is sort of getting back into the swing of things after taking a hiatus during COVID, I know that I'm in the open space subcommittee, and I know that part of the initiative in connection with this whole master plan process is to try to do outreach and get feedback from people that are directly involved with this master plan subcommittee and those who are not. So I'm wondering, and I was tasked this weekend with my group in the open space and recreation group to take a look at the master plan website where anyone can post any comment that they want regarding any topic. And so I was looking through that with respect to open space and recreation. And there was a lot of comments, actually, which I thought was pretty refreshing that there was people who were interested in commenting. I'm wondering if there's been active discussion with respect to this topic and the master plan subcommittee.
The master plan subcommittee is basically going to absorb the climate action plan research and work and strategies and stuff. There's not like a separate body of work that's being done by the subcommittee. I did have a review it was scheduled with Jim Robbins and Lester and Donnie. Unfortunately, Jim Robbins had the death in the family and was unable to attend. So I need to catch up with Jim. But we did tie off successfully with Lester in regard to how to integrate the two planning processes. I think your point on spending a little more time on the ideas form in the master plan is a good idea. There may be some ideas there. My suspicion is that would be pretty residential focused versus business and commercial and industrial. I think we have a better handle on how to reach out to the residential domain through civic organizations and, general meetings and stuff. I think we can touch them. I think the commercial is a harder group for us to understand how to engage with, including companies from Amazon to a 3-person, accounting firm. When you consider businesses, or to Alan's point, across that full spectrum, it's going to be a diverse set in.
Bonnie, if I could just comment, I wanted to reinforce the points that Alan made, and also kind of the tactical suggestion that Kim made, and maybe broaden out for you in that our climate action plan task force, one of our charters is really to be transparent, and we're in the listening phase. And so what we're discussing here is how best to reach the constituents in Westborough, that are consuming a lot of energy. It's no doubt that the biggest electricity consumers are likely very concerned about their energy consumption from an economic standpoint. And, this change is coming by the state. We want to help them take advantage of programs, that is the commercial sector, as well as be informed by the leaders in that space and share those best practices maybe with other middle market businesses. So the key for us right now is to make sure that what we're forming in terms of these strategies has some face validity, to let the business community know that we're undertaking this plan, that we're anxious for their input and at least their awareness, so that they don't feel like a shoe is dropped on them. But I think we appreciate the opportunity to talk to all of you and to think about this, because I think if there's one thing we've learned from the other towns that we've researched, it's that communication strategies are really important to be tailored to each of the segments that you're trying to reach. So Pete was talking about residential, and the master plan process. Chris is on here. We're very fortunate in that we have town governance that I would say is very progressive in this regard. We've done green communities. So as compared with other like-sized towns, I would say we're way ahead of the curve, even some of those that border us. And we can be a leader, and we can also help others along. But right now, I think, the idea is that in a town with as important a commercial base as Westborough has, we're mindful of the fact that they may not be necessarily tied into what the community is doing on a climate level. And we don't want to either get ahead of them or get behind them. So we just, so the tactical suggestions, just to what Alan said and Kim, I think, it's worth trying a couple of those ideas as well as an open forum. But we're in the listening phase now. So if they, we had some leaders to help tailor what's in the plan right now, I think we could declare some success and at least know that we've made an attempt to be transparent. So appreciate that opportunity just to make those comments.
Okay,
I
great.
I guess I would suggest that maybe we create a task group to specifically map out action items for outreach to the business community, because I'm thinking that we do the assessor's office does try and track all the businesses in town with respect to tax related issues. And I think on Pete's slide, do we go through landlords? We've got a few large business landlords who might be willing to receive information and forward an insert or, with the regular mailing or communication to tenants is a way of reaching, businesses. And then providing a way for, someplace then on the EDC site where businesses can go to get preliminary information, and then even request to be notified of information and events where we then get permission to contact them directly with things like a webcast or update emails, things of that nature. And I'd be happy to, take on that task with a few others.
I'd be happy to join and appreciate that suggestion. The slide I put up was some work that John Steinberg and Jim Robbins and I did early in the summer, where we tried to look at the large CNI accounts that are likely to be the highest energy users that would be the most impactful on our greenhouse gas emissions.
Yep.
And you can see the list is very diverse. It's very large. It's beyond what you could do one-on-one meetings. So I think kind of a task force, a task group, I think was the word you said, would be a good approach to kind of study it a little more detail and turn them into actionable steps.
In terms of events, we also, I'm not sure if this was the exact name, but the EDC has been involved with what's called I think a broker's breakfast, where a number of different commercial operators, landlords, tenants in the town come to discuss various developments and issues, both on the landlord and tenant
Each
side.
others. We did do the brokers events in the past, and I'm thinking along that line that we do have companies and brokers, and I think we can it is something that we could do. It's just going to take effort to pull people together. So but certainly I think we can. It's not something we haven't done before. So Pete and Tim, thank you very much for all of your work and for your leadership on these important development, and we'll look forward to working with you. And we'll work, Alan, with John and Jim and others on the committee. We'll be back in touch with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, great. Thank you very much. You're welcome to stay on, or we have a full agenda, so we're behind schedule at this point, but I think it was a worthwhile discussion and we appreciate your time. Did you want to say something?
Just thank you very much for having us. I was watching the time and I appreciate the extra time. Kim, did you get the host controls back? Okay. I just wanted to make sure that was successful.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Great. Okay. Great. So if we turn over to the agenda, we might need to go quickly through a couple of the subsequent items, but on the EDC grant program, I know the grant subcommittee has gotten together. So I don't know, Kim, if you want to.
I'm presenting that.
Okay, go ahead, Fred.
So very quickly, Kim had sent out what I'm requesting, or not me personally, but the subcommittee, Linda, Alan, John, and myself met. Basically, what we're proposing is 2 meetings a year for the grant authorization, if you will, in December and May, and the applications would have to be in October 31st and March 31st, respectively. If applications weren't received in a timely manner, they'd be just pushed out to the next meeting date, if you will. So we're basically looking from a subcommittee to do that twice a year. And also, if a grant program needed a match of up to $10,000, that the committee would allow that. Specifically, we're looking for the storefronts right now, but if any other grant program came up that they need an additional grant, a match, that the committee would approve that as well. If they don't get the $10,000 grant, say for the storefronts, then the grant award would revert back to the $5,000 match, which is allowed by our present grant program. that's kind of a synopsis of what's in that document that was sent out by Kim that the subcommittee came up with. I'll entertain questions, or if anybody else in the subcommittee wants to clarify, certainly they may. Not hearing any questions, I'd ask Bonnie if you could, as the chair, to ask for a vote. We'd have to do a roll call vote, but see if everybody will support that proposal by the subcommittee.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the proposed changes to the grant program.
I'll second. Edinburgh second.
So the roll call, Leonardo, yes.
Steinberg, yes.
And yes.
Williams, yes. Yeah.
Josh
Yeah.
Lee Smith, yes.
Sullivan, yes. Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble keeping track of everyone. So once we have all the votes, if someone could tell me what the total number of votes is.
Okay. Do we have, is Christy still on the phone?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I
Okay.
said Williams. Yes. Yep.
Yes, okay. So that's 1, Steinberg, 2, Pyant, 3, Smith, 4, Sullivan, 5, Edinburgh, 6, Linda, 7,
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
Okay,
I said yes also.
Todd?
Yep.
Okay, so that might be 8. Fred,
Leonardo,
I think that was 9.
yeah, Leonardo.
Okay. Okay, so I think we have everyone that's here, given that Jim Robbins is not with us today. So that's 9 in support. Great. Okay. So, so approved? Does that complete the approval? Okay, great. Thank you, Fred. Okay.
Thank you.
Good. Moving over to the vacant storefront program. John, did you want to provide the lead with the discussion?
Sure, just to sort of give an update on where this is. Kim, Fred, and I met and sort of reviewed where the downtown storefronts were that we thought were sort of vacancy. And then Kim and I spent some time looking at the program in the language that exists within the application process. That's the application for the program by the town. I spent some time reviewing the language of the other communities that are currently accepted in there. And we sort of did some thinking as to how do we contain it. There were no existing communities that had areas similar to Route 9. All of the areas were downtown focused, and the language of the program sort of drove it in that direction. It was more common than not that the ones that were approved had some sort of cohesive boundaries to them. And so what we did in my office is we went out and essentially walked or drove the primary downtown business district, thinking that identifying it through an overlay is a good, concise way to present the application in the area. And so we presented you with a map that sort of shows the downtown overlay district in the first map. And then relative to the density of storefronts, we continued out East Main Street. Now there are some storefronts that exist beyond that, but sort of you start to get into a more residential mix and a change in the nature of the storefronts. So we stopped at Baker Street. And so you'll see the map, the first map you were provided essentially shows the entire area. And then within that area, the second map identifies what are commercial buildings that could be considered storefronts. Now, I mentioned considered storefronts primarily because within what they categorize as a storefront is first floor access, non-professional office space type use. So there are a couple buildings within that area that we would evaluate whether or not they could be boutiques or would be likely to transition in use, or could, because there's some that have been vacant that might lend themselves to a walk-in, provided they could get some sort of signage approved. And so one of the things that we looked at relative to defining this was what would be our list within that. And so we're working on sort of evaluating what that list of storefronts would be, where you present to them within the application process, storefronts within that that are vacant, and ones that you believe to have been vacant for 12 months. Now, within that criteria, once you define and get approved your district, if things become vacant within that and are vacant under their definition of 12 months, so if a temporary or short-term tenant comes in and occupies it briefly, that's not considered occupied. That's still considered vacant by their definition. So the relative proof of vacancy in the end would be on the applicant, but by defining a district, potential projects that want to go in within that district could put together their application to the state for that, at which point they need to provide documentation as to the vacancy prior to that. That's up to them to sort of for approval for that. So that's sort of where we're at with this. The process from here is to sort of work with Kim to sort of refine the application relative to going to the state to get a district approved. Well, it doesn't go all the way up to where Cold Harbor is and Milk Street. We looked at including that beyond Phillip Street, heading up Milk Street, but it became really hard to legitimately define that within the district. There's too much of a distance in transition to primarily residential to sort of extend that legitimately, looking at where the state has approved districts already. That's it in a nutshell.
It's just very helpful. Thank you. Go ahead, Christy or Kim.
This is what we'll initially take to the EACC in December, and at points in the future, we can request that this be amended if we do want to expand the district. The conversation we had is this seems like a logical starting point, and we're hoping to, increase our odds of success in terms of approval, getting this approved as a district, by being able to show that there are some vacancies within this, and both ones that meet that 12-month criteria, but some newer ones that, hopefully they don't get to that point, but down the road, maybe they will. But again, this is a starting point. We do have the ability later on to go back and ask for it to be expanded or to create another district. It doesn't have to be contiguous.
Okay, so with respect to the boundaries on the district, just a question to see if this was discussed or thought of, looking at how far northerly we had on Milk Street. I know we've got a couple of gateway style businesses that, given the definition, could be considered storefront just north of Phillip Street. On the west side of Milk Street, there's some salons and they're currently auto repair or appliance repair shops, I guess, there. And I'm wondering, given the fact that the Westborough Mills has first floor property in the old loading dock building and the dentist office, which I'm not sure is still being used on Milk Street itself, if it would be worth including the mill building in the definition of the district, or is that something we'd look at later on?
It's certainly something that I'll go back out and look at. Or in our original evaluation of what going up that way, we had extended we looked at all the way up, but as it sort of came back in relative to density, we sort of, where the overlay district ended and where those other properties were, weren't sort of consistent enough, but we'll take a look, because you have those big gaps along the side. But I agree relative to up to Boardman Street. So we'll head back out there before we finalize. It's a good suggestion.
Okay, thank you.
The challenge we have is we were hoping to get approval or support for a defined district today, simply because of the timeline of getting applications submitted this month.
Okay,
So,
I would vote to support what's defined, knowing that we can amend in the future if we decide that it's worthwhile. So
And I think too, the other piece I just want to mention is the state does have some limits on how many projects they'll approve. So I think that's the other piece. If I thought, you know, the money were out there and every vacancy we could go in and ask for money for, then I might think differently. But I think, again, as a starting point, you know, we do have, in talking with Fred and John, I think there are a few areas we would like to target, because another piece of the application is you do have to demonstrate that you have the ability to do some outreach and that you have a plan and that you have some areas in mind. So I think this helps us in that respect be able to focus the actual application, and again, in hopes of increasing the chances of success.
Alan, this is Fred. To that point, we actually looked as far out as Route 9, because there's some members of this board alone that has some vacancies. But I think that Kim and John brought it back to the downtown area for now, and then we can look to expand it in the future.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering. So I wouldn't hold up the process or hold up the vote today to reassess. I'd go with what we've got here, definitely.
I'm curious, I think this is a great effort to get this together and keep it moving. Have there been any informal conversations since our presentation from Kevin Kuros at Office of Business Development? Have you talked with him to run by him, you know, what you've come up with at this point, or do you think that would be helpful before submitting the application?
I haven't run this by him. I've had a number of conversations with him.
Oh, good. Okay.
I don't, you know, separate from this, I don't know that showing this to him, I think based on the conversations I've had with him, this incorporates what we've talked about. And he's been very clear, you know, sort of his insight, but not, you know, he's not the one to ultimately give this the, you know, yay or nay.
Okay. So we're looking for a vote to approve the proposed vacant storefront district that you've presented here.
Yes, please.
Okay, so if we look to, I will initiate the vote. We have 9 people here today. So if we start with Christy, we'll kind of work our way.
I'll make the motion first. We need a motion first. So I'll make the motion that we approve the plan for the vacant storefront program as presented.
Okay.
Second. I second.
Williams, yes.
Okay, that's 3. Sullivan, yes. It's
Edinburgh,
4.
yes.
5.
Xander, yes.
6.
Steinberg, yes.
Townsend, yes.
8.
Smith, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I think all 9 members are in support. So,
Leonardo, yes.
yes, okay. Great, I think we got it all 9,
Brent's the
so
whole time.
we're, okay. So moved. Okay, great. Nice job, thank you. Moving along with the agenda, we have the special fall town meeting warrant. Kim?
Sure. And
We're not hearing you. You're muted.
okay. Sorry about that. And Christy's on the call. She may want to chime in on some of this, but as you saw in your packet, there is a draft of the fall special town meeting warrant. The board has not yet closed the warrants, and they will be discussing it tomorrow evening. There is a possibility that some of the articles, there may be a couple of articles that come off of it. But we know the 3 that I pointed out, one would seek to, it's what right now in the draft that you saw is Article 2, that would seek to fund the Economic Development Coordinator position for half a year, starting January 1st. As you may recall, and as we've discussed, when we had to review the current year budget and make reductions due to COVID-19, we eliminated funding for that position. So as we, again, I think we discussed this at the last meeting, we're hoping to restore funding so we could proceed with hopefully having someone in the role in the early part of January. So we're just looking for the committee's support for that. I assume at that point we would ask someone to express the committee's support for it at the town meeting.
Would someone like to make a move in support of the articles?
I'd make motions to support the articles.
Edinburgh seconds.
I just want to be clear, there's multiple articles and I don't know if you're looking to take a single vote or if you, I might recommend voting them separately.
Okay. All right, so if we start with the EDC, the funding for the EDC coordinator position, I think we have a motion and a second. And so we now do the roll call support. Okay. Sullivan,
yes.
yes. Edinburgh, yes. 2.
Smith, yes.
Smith,
Leonardo, yes.
okay.
Steinberg, yes.
Townsend, yes.
Alexander, yes.
Williams, yes.
I think one more person, maybe Chris?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we have 9 all in favor. So moved. Do you want to move to the second article?
Sure. So the other 2 articles, I'll speak about them together, but you may want to vote them separately. It's the article, and again, the numbers may change once the warrant is finalized, but there is an article, Christy spoke to this at the last meeting in August, but we are looking to bring forward the community development, the creation of a community development department. And under the proposed, the way that department would be structured, it proposes that the economic development coordinator would sit as part of that department. So that's why we thought it would be appropriate for this committee to weigh in. And then the second article that would follow that proposes additional funding for the building commissioner salary for a half year to basically promote that position to the community development director.
Do you want to take them individually or together as one? Okay,
I think separate votes would be helpful.
okay.
And again, since we don't have final article numbers, I think if the motion just references the article to establish a community development department would be fine.
So I move we vote to support the creation of a community development department as proposed in the warrant article.
Steinberg seconds.
All in favor, roll call.
Steinberg, yes.
Edinburgh, yes.
Yes.
Sullivan, yes.
Leonardo, yes.
Alexander, yes.
Townsend, yes. Williams, yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So moved. And the third article,
That's to fund the increase related to the the establishment of a community development director.
So I move that we vote to support the funding of the community development director salary as presented in the warrant article.
Steinberg seconds.
Williams,
All in
yes.
Steinberg, yes.
Edinburgh, yes.
Smith, yes.
Sullivan, yes.
Leonardo
Alexander,
abstained.
yes.
Fred, was that an,
I abstained.
Abstained.
Yeah. Townsend, yes.
Yes.
So we should have 8 in favor with 1 abstained. Okay, so moved. Great. thank you. Anything further that Kim, you or Christy want to add on the town meeting warrant? No? Okay. Moving on to the virtual annual review and the town EDC video. The review subcommittee has met and Josh did distribute some bullet points for discussion. Certainly a lot to think about, and thank you to the group for getting together. So I'll turn to Josh to present, to initiate the discussion.
Sure. Folks can hear me, right?
Yes.
So I apologize for circulating this somewhat late. We did meet, that is myself, Linda, Todd, Jim, Karen, and Aiden, at Linda's place of business to discuss the EDC's annual review. There was certainly a lot to discuss, and obviously one of the first things that we needed to confirm, which I think was somewhat obvious, was the format and whether or not we were going to attempt to do something in person as opposed to virtual. And the quick consensus was that if we're going to be having this around the same time as we had it last year and previous years, which is I think January, that we would definitely be doing this virtually. So the discussion that we had as a group really focused on a virtual style event, either like a Zoom or Google Meets type of an event. And we talked a little bit about the format in terms of how that might go, as well as I said, set forth in the bulleted items, the budget involved and what will some of the major costs that will be incurred and not be incurred because it's now going to be virtual. How the lieutenant governor or who the keynote speakers are going to be, how the awards are going to be set up. So today, I mean, I think, how much are we, is this meeting, Bonnie, is this scheduled to end at 5?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess I just wanted to get people to start thinking about some of these planning related topics. And get a little bit of consensus as we move forward, because for those certainly who have been involved in the past in this event, there are a lot of moving parts, and even though it may sound like it's a long ways away, January will be here as soon as we know it. So again, with respect to just sort of going down the list, in terms of the date of the event or the time frame, we were thinking of having it around the same time. That is in January of this coming year, or of next year, I should say. And we still would like to have, as a keynote speaker, the lieutenant governor. Whether we still want to have other speakers, including anyone from the House or Senate speak, or other officials. I think the general thought is that we do want to limit the number of speakers that we have this time around. Given that it's going to be a virtual format on a virtual platform, we're looking to have the overall event be probably no more than 1 hour in length, which obviously is more compressed time frame. So we need to get some, I guess, thoughts around who the speakers might be. Also, in terms of how the event itself is going to flow with respect to MCs and whether certain aspects of the event are going to be pre-recorded as opposed to being live. So those are some of the topics that we had discussed. Another major topic that we had discussed in terms of the content is having a sort of Why Westborough promotional video to be part of the actual presentation. And that Why Westborough video is something that this EDC has talked about in the past. And I think we went so far as to have a subcommittee formed to discuss this. And then of course, COVID hit. But our impression is this would be a good opportunity, given that the format is going to be virtual in nature, to have Westborough TV create this video with the help of others, obviously. And it could be not just an EDC focused video, but rather one that can be used for the EDC, for promoting the town, it can be as broad or as specific as we want. But I think this committee has given some examples of other communities such as Worcester and Grafton, Marlborough, Hudson. I know Framingham has a promotional video as examples. They're typically not more than 5 minutes in length, so it wouldn't be too long, but there certainly would be quite a bit of work involved in creating that. So as part of the folks who would be planning for the annual review, we would be forming a sort of a smaller group that would be focused on the Why Westborough video. And that would be, again, presented and or debuted at the EDC's annual meeting, and obviously can be used going forward for the EDC and other groups within the town. We'd also talked about the awards. Again, given the compressed time frame, we're looking to probably whittle down the number of awards again, and we need to get some consensus on what the awards are going to be. Obviously, this year has been very different than any other year in recent memory. So we want to get agreement with respect to the types of awards. Certainly, some examples in the past have been in the nature of best development project and projects to look for in the future, things of that nature. We've done civic pride awards. Certainly there should be some level of a COVID-related award or COVID-focused award. I'm sure many of you have been to various webinars and events that have happened during COVID. I've been to a couple where they've been awards-based ceremonies, and I know one that all of the awards, frankly, were somehow COVID-related, which was really a departure from what those events had previously really been all about. So we have to think about that. Obviously, there's a monetary component to this. The cost of putting together the traditional in-person annual review was not cheap. There was the hotel, there's a breakfast, there was all those other costs that are involved. So some of those will be no longer applicable, and yet there will be some other, I think, other costs that will step in as a result of it being virtual. So I think one of the more important things that we need to do sooner than later is determine sponsorship and sponsor levels, the number of sponsors, and what companies' appetites will be with respect to sponsorship. We had talked about having a much smaller level sponsorship alternatives for this annual review. But we need to really, I think, back into what our costs are going to be insofar as a budget is concerned before we can actually start reaching out to sponsors and be able to determine what the levels are going to be. So we definitely need to itemize some type of a budget, and that's going to take a few heads to, I think, come up with that. The other aspect is back to content. I think last year we had recognized to some extent the small business grants and the program as well. This year it's been a little bit on a hiatus, but I can at least think of one grant that we did award recently. So we have to think about how that's going to play into any type of presentation. And then there's a whole bunch of materials as well, the annual report, invitations, awards, rack cards, citations that we need to decide whether or not all or some or none of those items are going to be part of this program. So I just laid out those items in a bulleted form. I guess I'll leave it to more of an open forum for people's reactions, comments, questions.
Could you you're asking for feedback on some things, but we don't really have the data. Would it be possible after the meeting to share the list of awards for the last 2 or 3 years, so we can see which ones are consistent year to year and which ones have changed a little bit? And also information about the sponsorship levels and amounts.
The historic, what
Yeah,
we
just
charged
so
in
we
the
have
past.
just so we have a starting point to look and,
Yeah.
provide suggestions on what changes we might want to make.
Sure. And just for people's benefit, just in terms of the number of awards, and some of these we gave more than one awardee. Last year we gave out 7 different award categories.
And I think we have tried to, last year was our 6th year, I believe. And I think we have tried to keep them fairly consistent. And we have found that, that seemed to, I think our goal in having the annual event was to engage the business community and to encourage collaboration. So by having, awarding a company one year, we wanted to acknowledge them and consider them part of kind of our company circle, I guess. So if we could have the awards fairly consistent year to year, last year, I think on our program, we recognized the prior recipients with the whole goal of recognizing that while a company might not have received an award that year, the fact that they received one in an earlier year and they continue to be an important member of our business community, we want them to feel that we're continuing to, acknowledge them and their ongoing operations is important to us. So that was the idea of trying to keep some consistency, although we had a few years where we were a little more enthusiastic and had a unique award that we added. So if we're cutting back, I think, or in what we award, we might want to try to keep somewhat aligned with what we've done before. Nice overview, Josh, of a lot of information. Josh and I had a chance to talk before the meeting, and one of the things that is very obvious is the partnership, the importance of the partnership with Westborough TV. And we know from last year what an incredible addition the videos were that we had presented. We know how capable and the Westborough TV is. So we're interested in understanding what the capacity is and what the interest is of Westborough TV, because so much of what we're proposing, Westborough TV naturally falls very nicely into working with us, and we don't want to be approving things that go well beyond what the Westborough TV is interested in doing. So I don't know if you guys want to recap that, or if Karen is still available.
I had a chance to talk to Karen for a while after our meeting. They're very interested. I mean, they want to do the Why Westborough video. In fact, she's emphatic that she feels very strongly that we need to do it, even if it means scaling back on the other efforts for this meeting. But time is of the essence, and sooner than later, I think she's hoping that we can have, whether it's the whole EDC group meet virtually with Karen and Aiden, or just a subcommittee meet with Karen and Aiden and start to provide the high points that they can start to go out and shoot some of the footage needed. A conversation that we had about that is we looked at the EDC website, and it seems like we hit the high points of Why Westborough on our homepage. The question is, are those still the high points? And if they are, to give her the green light to start to shoot some B-roll for some of those things. And if they're not the high points, we may want to think about updating our website so it's in alignment with the video. But she's definitely excited to work with us on the Why Westborough and the award recipient videos, but is very anxious to get started.
Yeah,
Right,
Karen,
thanks.
do you want
Yeah.
to weigh in?
Yeah, so thanks, Linda. And yeah, it was really helpful to meet with the subcommittee, and Linda and Josh did a great job summarizing. I think personally, having been involved the way I have been with the town, and that we really want that Why Westborough video. I just think that it would be a really big thing for the EDC to have. I really want to get that footage now, because if we're going to do things like some sweeping views of properties in town, the fall is a nice time to get that. If we wait and we do that in December and that's when we decide, then all of a sudden it's like, well, you can still see it, but not necessarily as kind of lush and inviting as some of the footage we might get right now. And the other thing that I really need in order to do a Why Westborough, although I like to think I know some of the reasons, I know what I think, but you guys are more closely engaged with that. That's where we talked about what's on your website and what's that storyboard for Why Westborough, who's the target market and what are the points you really want to highlight. And then we can certainly, we don't need you to give us a shot list of every single thing we need to get. It's kind of like last year with highlighting the various businesses. We know the shots to get there. We can get some drone footage, we can get some indoor footage, we can get some interviews, so we can start to make that happen. But that storyboard, and if we could come up with that, would be great for us to move forward with. Oops. Something just slammed on my window. All right, sorry. A bird trying to get in, I don't know.
Yeah. I learned
sorry.
I had a woodpecker the other day. I was wondering who was knocking, and I went outside and saw I had a woodpecker. So.
Guess what? Sorry. Which is kind of frightening. And I have one other thing to say, which is that we have another, just a side thing that you guys might be interested in is that we started doing a video with a bunch of businesses in town. This is just because I think the EDC might be interested. And we had some time with one of my students who worked last year, Holly, I think some of you met, but she's been going out to a bunch of local businesses. And Christy Williams had asked me about doing this a few weeks ago, and doing kind of a Westborough during the pandemic, and that we're still open for business. And so I think that that's just kind of a neat video for us to have. And so she's just been going to a bunch of local companies and getting some really great footage. But that's also footage I felt like we might be able to use in our Why Westborough video. So she's just getting some really good, we call it B-roll, but some really good shots and sounds of Westborough businesses. Again, probably that's more local, smaller businesses. And I know you're not just focused on the big commercial, but it'll give us some nice footage to be able to reuse for that. And we might just make a series of those, like maybe there's 3 or 4 kind of commercials that talk about, we're still open for business, making it happen, still thriving, please support and your local businesses. So we're going to do a few of those in the meantime while we wait for this to ramp up. It's about all. I would love to have a smaller group meeting. I mean, it could be anybody, but just to focus on either the Why Westborough video or more on your actual annual event. And I think it would be great. It gives something to that annual event, since it's going to be virtual. If you kind of had the premiere of your Why Westborough video, just might be a nice fit and something extra for that event. Even if that means, does it happen at the end of January? Do we end up making it in February? I mean, we can get a timeline once I know exactly what all will be required of us. And just like last year, I mean, I made a commitment last year to make sure we got them done, and we got them done without issue. You guys had a chance to see them. We learned a lot in that process. We hadn't done it before. So definitely we can step up and make it happen. That's all, if anybody has any questions.
We're really fortunate to have you, and with your enthusiasm and your all of the skills that you have. So I think it's a great idea to have a follow-up meeting to get more, further develop the conversation, and then come back to the, in the next month to the group. So thank you very much. We can't thank you enough. So Josh and Linda, thank you as well. So we'll definitely follow up with that as well. If you want to initiate another meeting, that would be great. Moving down on the agenda, I think, so Jim Robbins is not here today. I don't know, Kristen, if there's anything you wanted to share or
I do not have anything on his behalf.
okay, all right, thank you. Fred?
Yeah,
Would you like
real
to-
quickly, Amazon has taken up the first residence of the existing warehouse. They just got sign off at the end of the week. That would make some actual great video. They have substantial amount of steel going up too, so that might be something to keep in mind to get some footage of that, because it's a massive building. On the other end of the spectrum, hopefully this will go forward. We have a building permit for 2228 West Main Street, which is a vacant storefront. It's been vacant for probably 2 years anyway. So we're hoping that they're proposing an Asian fusion restaurant of some sort. I think it's Vietnamese cuisine more specifically, but hopefully that'll go forward and that'll take out one of those storefronts.
Is this in the Rotary?
Yeah, it's right before the Rotary. It's near the what we used to be the subway. It's no longer there. It's in those storefronts.
Oh,
Right past the town hall, heading towards the Rotary, if you will.
is there another eatery also coming downtown in the Rotary?
I don't know. I haven't heard that.
Yes, there's
Where the cafe is?
an Asian cafe going in, Thai food going in, where Christina's Cafe used to be.
All right. Yes, you're right. I'm sorry about that. So yeah, somebody has bought that. I haven't seen a permit on that yet, so I'm not exactly sure what they're doing in there. But yes, thank you for that. So those are what I had.
Great. We did, one thing I was mentioning with Fred earlier was Estellas, which, over behind the DoubleTree, is going to be having an event a virtual event within the next month. So we may be doing something as a town or committee to provide a short, they're looking for maybe 10 to 20 second email or video to add to their virtual event.
What is it, a opening or?
Yeah, I think so, right? They've been open for probably a year, but it took a while to commission that building. They did a beautiful job on the interior and exterior, but the interior of the building. But I imagine because, well, one, Corona, and two, because it just took them a while to get up and going, I'm assuming.
Yeah, they had intended on doing something in May, but then with the pandemic, was put in the back burner. So they decided to do something. We just got an email today with some communication. So they do have the Lieutenant Governor engaged. So any other business anyone would like to introduce?
Bonnie, just one other thing that we received notice of today from Eversource, that they are moratorium on utility disconnections for non-payment of commercial customers ended on September 1st, 2020. So while the moratorium has ended, they are working to help any customers who may be struggling. Again, this is their commercial account, so we have some information on that we can also try to get up on the website and put that up there. So while the moratorium has ended, they have other things that they're trying to provide assistance. It was an email that was received this morning, so we can clean it up and push that out through the website as well.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, everyone. Certainly a lot of follow-up identified from the discussion today, and appreciate everyone's effort with all of the subcommittees. So we will have more to move ahead with in the month ahead. So unless there's anything further, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Edinburgh seconds.
Steinberg, yes.
Edinburgh, yes.
Yep.
Williams, yes.
Townsend, yes.
Sullivan, yes.
Diane, yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Alexander, yes.
Very good. I think that's I think that's 9. I think that's everyone. So
Right.
thank you very, thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate your time and all of your enthusiasm. So,
Take care.
yep, take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.